Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the 5th overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. The caveat for this mock draft compared to the other mock drafts that we've been doing is this is going to be a 3 wide receiver mock draft. The roster positions are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, flex kicker, defense, and 5 bench spots. So I'm going to talk about how my draft strategy would differ in a 3 wide receiver draft compared to the standard 2 wide receiver draft in today's video, and it will be shown off fairly clearly in the mock draft how much of a difference it makes starting 3 wide receivers versus 2. But before we can get on into this mock draft, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, do you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy, and my PPR cheat sheet and rankings are available on Patreon, link in the video description or in the pinned comment. We're going to be drafting today up against the ESPN, NFL, and Sleeper ADP. So without further ado, let's get into this mock draft. So in a 3 wide receiver draft compared to 2 wide receiver, the wide receiver position is obviously more important. Now, I believe you shouldn't necessarily put the wide receiver position on a pedestal and say, hey, if I'm at the 5th overall pick, I need to pick a wide receiver at the 5th overall pick. I don't think you should go into your draft thinking that way. And if you really like Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson, I would be perfectly fine selecting them here at the 1.05, but I will acknowledge that the wide receiver position is definitely more important when you're comparing to the normal 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, and 1 flex type of a league. Again, if you like Breece Hall, you like Bijan Robinson in a 3 wide receiver league, they will typically be available for you here at the 105. Then go ahead and select them. The draft here begins with Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, and Jamar Chase. Both CD and Jamar going back-to-back, both dudes dealing with contract disputes that will hopefully get ironed out very, very soon. So to me, since this is a 3 wide receiver draft, I am going to lean with Amon-Ra St. Brown over Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson. Now, I will acknowledge that if Amon-Ra St. Brown already got taken, I would have definitely been a lot more likely to select either Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson. Again, while the wide receiver position is definitely more important in a 3 wide receiver draft where you should be starting 4 wide receivers every single week, 3 wide receivers in your wide receiver spots, and then 1 in your flex spot. If you really like Breece Hall, you like Bijan Robinson at this pick, it is A-okay to take them. I am a big believer that Amon-Ra St. Brown could end up being the wide receiver number 1 in fantasy football this season. The guy put up over 1,500 yards last year, 10 total touchdowns. He could easily repeat that again, and he did that for more than half of the season with a torn oblique. Amon-Ra St. Brown is incredibly legit. This Detroit Lions offense is too legit to quit. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the clear number 1 target in this offense. Jared Goff is a much better quarterback than people give him credit for, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is in a perfect situation to succeed where he is going to see a boatload of targets game in and game out. And the best part about Amon-Ra St. Brown is he'll get targets when it's 1st and 30, right? If they got backed up from a bunch of penalties, he gets the ball. If they're in the red zone on the 1-yard line, knock it up on the door, he'll get targets if he's on their own 1-yard line, right? He is used all over the field. He is used early in games, and he is used often in games. So Amon-Ra St. Brown, to me, is a very safe pick at the 105. But if you wanted Breece or Bijan, I am not going to just heckle you for doing that. After Amon-Ra St. Brown, Breece Hall, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Bijan Robinson, Puka Nacua, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jahmyr Gibbs, Chris Olave, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams, and Isaiah Pacheco. Back up on the clock here, my highest ranked wide receiver would be Drizzy Drake London, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, Mike Evans, all still available. I am fine taking Drake London close to the end of the 2nd round, but I fully understand that selecting him at pick number 20 definitely feels a little bit gross, a little bit grimy. because we've never really seen Drake London put up great numbers at the NFL level. We've seen some solid games. In my opinion, the quarterback position has let him down his whole entire career. It's not like he's been in the NFL for like 5 or 10 years or something. He's been in the NFL. This will be his 3rd year. But the quarterback situation, the play calling has been suspect his whole career. And I think Drake London will bounce back. But when you have Etienne, Achane, Derrick Henry, all still up on the board here, I am going to lean with a running back and then go with some more wide receivers. After that, go with more of a hero running back build, which is something that I will heavily advocate for in 3 wide receiver leagues. Getting that running back that's ranked inside the top 10, a running back you believe with top 3, top 5 upside, and then surrounding them with a bunch of hammer pieces at wide receiver, and then getting a bunch of running backs later. Now, obviously, you shouldn't be going to your draft with any certain plan, thinking you have to do it, because guess what? If you go Travis Etienne here, or Achane, or Henry, and then you come back in the 3rd round and you're like, you know what? I like Josh Jacobs here. I like James Cook here. Then I don't think it's all that crazy to go quote-unquote double hero running back, while the old school way of double hero running back was a running back in the 1st and the 2nd round. Nowadays, with how running backs are falling more, you will be able to do it in the 2nd and the 3rd round. I'm starting to warm up a little bit more to Travis Etienne. Again, I do have Devon Achane as well as Derrick Henry ranked higher, but they are all toss-ups for me. So if you prefer Etienne over those guys, I wouldn't find it all that crazy. In this mock draft, we will go with Etienne. Etienne is a guy that has been very solid in back-to-back seasons. If we go ahead and look at his numbers, he was solid in his rookie year, even better in his sophomore season, and Travis Etienne's competition is very light. Tank Bigsby is about as useless as it gets. The guy fucking sucks straight up. I try to be nice about Tank Bigsby because I really did like him entering into his rookie year, but frankly, he just does not cut it. So Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, Drizzy Drake London, Travis Kelce, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Cooper Kupp. Now, in a 3 wide receiver league, I do, in a way, bump down the value of quarterback as well as tight end because of how important the wide receiver position is. But again, that's not really a hard or fast rule, not something I'm sticking to every time. If you wanted Jalen Hurts here, take him. If you wanted Laporta here, I definitely wouldn't argue too much with you on that. So the question now is, at the 305, with Devon Achane still available, would we jump on that? Now, his ADP is pick 24. We're over at pick 29. So I think more than likely in your at-home league, unless everyone is a scaredy pants that is afraid of drafting Devon Achane due to the amount of touches, his touch concern, and oh my God, he was so efficient last year, he's not going to be able to do it again. I think a majority of people, consensus-wise, like Achane. If he was available here, I probably would end up taking him, but because I don't think it's very realistic, and again, we try to be realistic here in these mock drafts, we are going to turn the other cheek and look a different way. At wide receiver, Jalen Waddle's available. Michael Pittman's available. At quarterback, we could go with Jalen Hurts. Tight end, Sam Laporta still available. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Do I love drafting 2 players on the exact same team this early on? The answer to that would be no, but I do want to get Sam Laporta on some of my teams because I have been someone that is heavily in the camp of taking Kelce as the tight end 1. So when Laporta falls as the tight end 2 to a range where I'd be comfortable taking him, I'm going to do that. He is currently dealing with a hamstring injury, but he's expected to practice as soon as today as you're watching it. So I'm not really all too worried about that. If Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown were on some garbage team, then we would not be talking about potentially selecting them on the same team. And again, that hard and fast rule about maybe not taking an elite quarterback or an elite tight end goes out the window here because I like the value of Sam Laporta. Some people would be uncomfortable taking 2 Lions, but I expect the Lions to be a very good offense, and I am thus fine selecting Sam Laporta after we went with Laporta, Michael Pittman Jr., Devon Achane, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurts, Josh Jacobs, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, and James let him cook. So we're back up at the wide receiver position here. And to me, it is basically a no-brainer. We are going to go with Malik Nabers here. Now, Malik Nabers is far from the safest bet for you to draft, but the upside is humongous. I understand that Daniel Jones absolutely reeks to high heaven, but if Daniel Jones is just halfway decent, more like the 2022 version versus the 2023 version of himself, Malik Nabers is a guy that is open at an incredibly high rate. Malik Nabers is a wide receiver that has a lot of ability after the catch. This is a guy that, if targeted correctly, if utilized correctly, which I believe he will be in a Brian Daboll system, Malik Nabers has top 10 upside. Does it feel like the safest pick? The answer is fuck no, baby. To me, Malik Nabers feels a lot more comfortable when he's your wide receiver 3, not your wide receiver 2. But knowing that we are about to go hammer mode on the wide receiver position and not draft a quarterback since we went with the elite tight end, in my opinion, while we did kind of talk about the elite tight end, the elite quarterback kind of turning the other cheek on those positions early in a 3 wide receiver draft, if you take an elite tight end, to me, there's virtually no reason to hop, skip, and jump my way into Anthony Richardson, even though I'm a huge Anthony Richardson fan, or one of these other quarterbacks. Malik Nabers has all of the ability, so I am going to take that risk on the upside because I believe the upside is that huge. Early on in fantasy drafts, the first 3 rounds, a lot of the times I am trying to keep it as safe as possible. But in the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the deeper and deeper you get into the draft, you want to rip that condom off and go straight up raw dog. After Malik Nabers, Rashad with 2 A's, White, Mark Andrews, Alvin Kamara, Trey McBride, Kenneth Walker III, Zay Flowers, A. Ron Jones, and C.J. Stroud. Looking at the wide receivers available, Amari Cooper, T. Higgins, Terry McLaurin, Rashee Rice. Now, if you guys watched the wide receiver rankings video I put out just a couple of hours ago, I basically metaphorically sucked off Rashee Rice. I've been doing it for multiple videos in a row, just given the virtual Gawk 9000 to Rashee Rice, because without the suspension that I believe that he will not receive this season, the number 1 wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs deserves all of the fame. Rashee Rice caught fire towards the end of last season. He got hot NBA Jam style, and I think that heat is going to repeat into this season. I get they drafted Xavier Worthy, they bring in Hollywood Brown, but Rashee Rice is that guy in the Kansas City Chiefs offense. But since we take him so frequently, I treat these mock drafts like they're real drafts. If I'm doing 10 home leagues, maybe you're doing just 1, then get your guy. Get Rashee Rice, because I love Rashee Rice so much. But if I am personally in 4 home leagues, while having Rashee Rice in 4 leagues might sound all fine and dandy since I love him so much, if he was to get hurt or if he ends up being a swing and a miss, sure, you could draft him in half the leagues, maybe take him in 3 out of 4, but in at least one of them, detour, because you don't want your 5th or 4th round potential pick with how much Rashee Rice moved up the boards to get hurt or be a bust, because then it doesn't just hurt on one team, it hurts on all your teams, it hurts everywhere. So we're going to go with Titty Boy T. Higgins. Now, I understand T. Higgins had a down year, and it wasn't just a somewhat down year. It was a down astronomical year, but he suffered injuries. Joe Shiesty was hurt. The team was suffering from turbulence. I believe in 2024, the team's going to be a lot more reliable. Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and guess what? Without Joe Mixon, they might look to up their pass tempo, throw the ball at a much higher clip. So I would be absolutely ecstatic to have T. Higgins in the 5th round. After T. Higgins, we're going to go with Tank Dell off the board. We're going to go with, the computer picked him, Tank Dell, Dalton Kincaid, James Conner, Ramondre Stevenson, George Pickens, David Montgomery, Calvin Ridley, Anthony Richardson, Amari Cooper, George Kittle, Me Timbers, Evan Ingram, Kyler Murray, the short king, Keenan Allen, and Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow. So we're back up on the clock here, and Rashee Rice is available. Now, I genuinely do believe that if you were able to get Rashee Rice at pick 68, 1 pick off of 69, very nice, I like, you would be popping just a straight up chub in your pants like you're off a honey pack, like you're off of Viagra. It would be a chub that would be just rock hard that it would go straight through your fucking pants, right? I would be absolutely ballistic. I would be bricked up if I could get Rashee Rice in the 6th round. And while his ADP caters to being a 6th round pick, your league mates are 100%, unless their head is fucking under a rock, living like Patrick, right, from SpongeBob. I'll tell you right now, Rashee Rice will not be available in the 6th round. Now, if you're drafting with some certified bums, with people that don't have enough brain cells to rub together, the type of guys that would lick windows on the buses to the way to school, right? The type of guy that'll drink Windex. Sure, maybe if you're surrounded by a bunch of Geico cavemen, then maybe you'll be able to get Rashee Rice in the 6th round. But I'm comfortable now taking him in like the 5th or the 4th round. So I would be shocked. Now, maybe you guys are in home leagues with a bunch of buffoons. Very possible, right? You're playing with your grandma, your grandpa, you're playing with your aunts, your uncles, right? Some people that don't know ball. Sure, it's possible. But in the more average league, even in the more average intelligence league, I'm not talking about you're drafting with a bunch of copies of yourself, right? You're watching a fantasy football video. You're definitely caring about fantasy football. So you probably have a big edge up on your league, right? You're watching my fucking video. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, right? So you're already a genius now that I've talked to you, right? And you have your own opinions. You mix them all together. It's a recipe of sugar, spice, and everything nice. But in reality, in your home league, I really think, like, if you're drafting next week, like Labor Day, Rashee Rice is not going to go here. Maybe if you're drafting today, he will, but people are going to keep catching on, keep moving him up. So we're going to go with Terry McLaurin this time. Now, Terry McLaurin is a guy that I talked about in depth in the wide receiver rankings video, so you got to make sure you watch that, where every year we try to talk ourselves into Terry McLaurin. We buy into him because of the talent he had coming out of college, how he looked early on in his career. But every year, he ends up basically backhanding us. Every year, he ends up kicking us in the tuchus down the stairs. Now, Terry McLaurin's very talented. Jaden Daniels should be talented. They get rid of Jahan Dotson. They just don't really have any other options, so I'm fine taking him here. But I'll be honest, like Chris Godwin, Jaden Reed, Deontay Johnson, Rashee Rice definitely entices me more, but I'm going to go Terry McLaurin here because I do think that really they just don't have any options to throw the fucking ball to. They really don't. It's been the case for years. He's been very up and down, but you can see the upside. So if the consistency comes from Jaden Stormy Daniels, then you're going to be ecstatic to have gotten Terry McLaurin there in the 6th round. They're saying the experts rank him 53rd overall. I'm pretty sure he's like a 6th round pick in every single draft, so I don't really think we got some crazy steal there. After Terry McLaurin, Kyle Pitts, DeAndre Swift, Zamir White, Christian Kirk, Raheem Mostert, Chris Godwin, Rashee Rice, and Jaden Riley Reed. So right now we are in a range, or we're about to be approaching a range at running back where, you know, it's kind of just throwing shit against the wall, right? You're just kind of hoping, you're praying for the best. Now, I like Javonte Williams. I think that Javonte Williams, if he's the clear lead back in Denver, which I think he will be, he will put up huge numbers. But there's also the worry that, hey, they're using Jaleel McLaughlin. Jaleel McLaughlin might steal some pass catching opportunities. Javonte got a shit ton of targets last year, though. In a Sean Payton offense, you could argue to rank Javonte over Najee Harris. Najee has Arthur Smith calling the plays, and he has a running back in his backfield that I think is better than him. Problem is, that running back is Jaylen Warren, who is hurt. Hamstring injury from 8/20, which was a couple of days ago. Now, it's nothing to be a long-term concern, but we know how hamstrings work, right? Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins. We make that joke all the time. But what I'll tell you is if it fucking pops up again, right? It shows up, stabs you in the back, then the motherfucker might be out more than that. And it's kind of worrisome. But I don't really believe in Najee, but it's hard to rank him like lower than Javonte. I believe more in Javonte. I'm going with Javonte. I'm going to reach a little bit, give a little bit of a reach around to Javonte, pause, and pick him here. I am a big believer that while the Denver Broncos offense might be straight up dog shit, I think Bo Nix is better than people give him credit for. And I just like the idea of drafting the lead running back in a Sean Payton offense. It just works. It just works. And they gave Javonte Williams so many touches coming off of a serious injury. So now he's another year removed from it. I'm a big fan of Javonte. After Javonte, David Njoku, Dickie Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson, Brian Robinson Jr., Roma Dunze, Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson. The 8th opens with Christian Watson, Hollywood Brown, Jordan Love, who I was hoping would fall to us, Jonathan Brooks, who I was also kind of hoping would fall to us, Tony Pollard, Xavier Worthy, and JSN. Now we're in the quarterback range where it's kind of like plug your nose and wait, because I really don't see a crazy difference between all of these guys. Just me and pick numero uno have yet to select a quarterback. So unless you think your league mates are super into drafting quarterbacks, like a second one, then you typically can wait. Now, my dad is in a league that he did the draft for. Tonight as I'm recording this, yesterday as you're watching this, someone took Mahomes in the 3rd round and then came back around the 5th round and took Lamar Jackson because no one was taking quarterbacks. Now, what I will tell you is that is a very, very, very stupid decision. While you might be like, ha, guess what? Now I got 2 quarterbacks and you don't got one, you fucking idiots. Guess what? What happens if no one wants to trade with you? Now you're cycling quarterbacks every single week. Now you're making the wrong decisions. You should have started Mahomes when you played Jackson. You should have started Jackson when you played Mahomes. And it's basically like a fucking circus of you juggling the quarterback. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be doing that. So don't be that guy. But sometimes there is that guy, right? And again, I'm speaking from, I literally watched it happen. I was upstairs making some cereal. I was making some Frosted Flakes. They're great. And my dad was like, what the fuck? Why did that just happen? And I was like, you know what? Some people are a bit of buffoons. So we're back up on the clock here. The running back position is starting to dwindle, but I'm fine waiting until the next round to get another running back. So we're going to go wide receiver here, and we're going to go with Ladd McConkey. We've been talking him up a bunch. You could go with Courtland Sutton, but like with this being a 3 wide receiver, 1 flex spot, like there's going to be a lot of times where we are just forced into starting Courtland Sutton. And while I think Courtland Sutton's the best wide receiver on this team by a huge margin, why I think Bo Nix could be pretty successful just feeding the rock to Courtland Sutton. Do I really want to be starting 2 guys on the fucking Broncos every week? No. Am I fine starting 2 Lions? Yes. No to the Broncos. DeAndre Hopkins has started to fall so far to where it's like, you know what? I kind of might be into him, but with Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr. still available, it just would feel like a reach. Now, Ladd McConkey's on a team. Their MO, run. They could run. If Harbaugh got his ways, he would run every single fucking play. They wouldn't even throw the ball. It'd be like you're watching a Navy, Army, Naval Academy game. It's like you're watching football back in the day, some smash mouth football, but they're going to have to pass. Justin Herbert, the pervert, is a competent, great quarterback, in my opinion. So, if Ladd's the number 1 guy, Ladd's going to pay off. If Ladd isn't the number 1 guy and it's more of a 50-50 split, then Ladd's probably not paying off, but it's okay. It was an 8th round selection. And rookies typically take a while to develop, so we got St. Brown. Neighbors is still a rookie, but I think he could be like a day 1 contributor. We got T. Higgins, McLaurin, the guys to pick up the scraps, and then maybe Ladd comes over the top with a hammer blow. Shout out Ladd McConkey. After McConkey, Eckler, Jordan Addison, Jalen Warren, 49ers defense, Keon Coleman, Browns, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, and the Chicago Bears defense. So we still don't have a quarterback, but the first team didn't take one. So we know by the time things swing around, we have a whole nother pick until we have to take a quarterback. We don't have to take one now. We can take one in the next round. Now, that is why it's very important to look at the teams around you or utilize the draft board if your league has one, if you're in person, because now we know, hey, we can get a running back or wide receiver that we want, and more than likely, as long as some a-hole in here doesn't take a second quarterback, we'll be able to get the quarterback we want with our 10th pick. That's very important. It's these small things make a big difference. And I know to a lot of you guys that have been playing fantasy for a while, you know, hey, you should be doing this. But the newer players, not everyone that watches these videos are fucking experts, right? Not all of you guys have been playing for a long time. Some of you guys, this might be the first video you watch for fantasy football ever. You're trying to figure out how to draft. So I'm just trying to help everyone. I think that's a very good trick. And again, some people that have been playing for a while might not even know to do that. So we are going to go running back here, and I think Jerome Ford might be able to come back in the next round, but I kind of want to get Tajay Spears here because I really like the fact that I think Tajay Spears is better than Tony Pollard, and I think that he's the better pass catcher. Now, I 100% believe that the Titans won't be the best team and they're going to try to throw the ball a lot more than we're used to, right? If you are used to the Mike Vrabel system in Tennessee, it's going to look a lot different. They're not going to be just pounding you with the rock, Jim Harbaugh style, Mike Vrabel style, but they're going to look to air it out a little bit more. Devin Singletary's fine, but to me, Devin Singletary is kind of just like a complacent pick. And what I mean by that is like, what's the upside of Devin Singletary, right? He looked good last year in Houston, but now you go to New York with the Giants, which is a way worse team that's going to be down and out in games having to throw, which is going to help out Neighbors. Devin Singletary feels like the boring pick, right? Like getting a fucking hand job. It gets the job done, but it's nothing special. It's not the Gawk 9000. It's not railing her in the fucking wheelbarrow position, right? It's just good enough. Devin Singletary to me is just good enough, right? If you're questioning Javonte Williams, you're like, you know what? Maybe I want another safe bet. Take Devin Singletary because Tajay Spears could be a scrub or he could be really good. But Zach Moss is available and I'm taking Zach Moss. I talked myself off of it. I don't know why Zach Moss isn't ranked higher. Zach Moss, I think, is the lead back in Cincinnati. They didn't really play him in preseason. You want to know who they played? Chase Brown. Now, it doesn't mean that Chase Brown is some zero, that he is some terrible player, but I think Zach Moss earned the starting role. And while I do think that the Bengals are going to look to be a little bit more pass heavy without Joe Mixon, I think Moss is a guy that showed us a lot in Indianapolis. Now, early on in his career, when he was on the Bills, that guy was straight trash. He never really showed us anything, but he didn't really get enough opportunity. So I guess calling him straight up trash, Oscar the Grouch type deal, I won't do that. I retract my statement, but to be honest, he wasn't really that great in Buffalo. Looked great last year. Again, very small sample size, though. And he's not going to get that crazy workload like he got in Indy. After Zach Moss, we see the Baltimore Ravens defense, Devin Singletary, Bengals, Cowboys, D-Hop, Gus, Tajay, Zeke, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., Blake Corum, Chase Brown, Trey Benson, and Cortland Sutton. So now, if you had a quarterback in mind, you were like, I really like Purdy, I really like Jaden Daniels, I like Caleb Williams, then you would just take him here. To be honest with you, I think Purdy's probably the safest, but I'd be fine even taking two quarterbacks in the scenario, get a rookie like Caleb, pair him with Jared Goff, and then obviously we're 3 deep in Detroit, which I'm fine with because they're a great team. To some, that's too much of a risk. Now, while I would say that that is a good strategy, is because now you're minimizing the amount of bets you're making on your team, right? You're saying Detroit's going to be great. Detroit is going to be smacking defenses around, going to be hitting them with the RKO, going to hit them with the 5-knuckle shuffle, a swanton bomb, the RKO. I already said the RKO, the 619 Rey Mysterio, right? So now you're thinking, you know what? If the Lions kick the shit out of a team, sweet chin music, then all 3 of those guys are going to hit. Now, obviously, the downside is, hey, what if Jared Goff has a bad game, right? He's not seeing the field correctly. He is like fucking out there like Patchy the Pirate with one eye, and he can't read the defense, and he has a bad game. Guess what? Laporta and Amon-Ra probably don't have the best games either. So there's upside of it, downside of it. I am someone that's hunting for as much upside as possible personally, so I'm fine taking that risk. We don't have to take that risk, though. Again, we want to be starting 4 wide receivers every single week. But again, we're entering like a similar range at wide receiver. So I'm just going to go running back here with Jerome Ford. We've been talking this guy up all summer. I like Nick Chubb. I'm a big fan of Nick Chubb. He was must draft for me last year. We saw how that went. Not my fault, though, because if I knew he was going to get hurt, I wouldn't have said that. You can't predict injuries. Hopefully he's able to get healthy. I always root for Nick Chubb. Been a fan of him for years, ever since his rookie year when he was tag teaming with Kareem Hunt. And I've always liked him. But I'll tell you, that injury is serious, very, very serious. Now, again, I'm not a doctor. What I'll tell you is if he missed half the season and then he came back and was like barely touching the ball, that wouldn't shock me at all. If Jerome Ford's the lead back and you get him in the 10th round, even if it's for half the fucking season, you're living large. After Jerome Ford, Chuba Hubbard, Zach Charbonnet, J.K. Dobbins, Tyler Algier, Khalil Shakira, Tyler Lockett, Rico Dowdle, and Curtis Samuel. That team just doesn't want to take a quarterback. So we're just going to take the highest quarterback ranked. Brock Purdy was a top 6 quarterback last year. Now, if they lose out on Ayuk, obviously that would be no bueno. But I still think Big Cock Brock is worthy of that pick, even if it's just Debo, Kittle, and McCaffrey. Brock Purdy is heavily carried by the receivers around him, the players around him. But even without Debo Samuel, or even without Ayuk, I should say, sorry about that, you still have Debo, McCaffrey, and Kittle, which is a great trio of throwing the fucking ball to. So I'm pretty confident in Brock Purdy regardless. Does it feel like the most fun pick? Like, no. Like, I'm not screaming to the mountaintops. I'm not doing the fucking Irish jig, Sheamus style, up to the draft board to select him, right? I'm not laughing at everyone as I walk by. Ha ha ha, I'm taking Brock Purdy, you idiots. You should have taken him. But we've seen the upside, and he's a solid, consistent player. After Brock Purdy, Jerry Jeudy, Romeo Doubs, Khalil Herbert, Mike Williams, my guy, Jalen Wright, also my guy. This guy looks as explosive as it gets. The problem is he's stuck behind two other backs. Brandon Cooks, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, Dallas Goedert, Adonai Mitchell, Kendre Miller, Damian Pierce, New York Jets, and Ty Chandler. We talk about Kendre Miller all the time, but I have never seen a coach hate a player so vehemently than Dennis Allen hates Kendre Miller. Like, it's like Kendre Miller wakes up in the morning and plows Dennis Allen's wife, and then he rips ass in his face, and then he slaps him with this cock that he just got used fucking his wife. That is literally how it feels. He hates Kendre Miller. Like a villain story, like how much the Joker hates the Batman, right? Some crazy stuff like that. So we need more receivers, though, which is fine. Josh Downs, questionable. Like, Joshua Palmer would be a layup here, a slam dunk, Giannis Antetokounmpo style slam dunk, Ja Morant, Wembanyama, but we already have a Chargers receiver, so we're not going to do that. Shaheed feels fun, but he is hurt. Not expected to miss significant time, but again, not the most promising. We don't have any Packers, so we're going to go with Wicks. Now, Wicks, to me, pretty clearly like the number 3 on that team, but the Packers do cycle the wide receivers around a bunch weekly. So if you're able to get Wicks and, you know, maybe someone gets hurt ahead of him, knock on wood, we're not rooting for injuries, and he becomes like the clear number 2, then there's a great path for him, especially with what we saw last season out of Wicks. After Wicks, Jalen McLaughlin, Joshua Palmer, Antonio Gibson, Jaden Daniels, Lloyd, Mooney, Vidal, Corley. I am as high as it gets on the Packers. I'm a Dolphins fan, but I probably sound like a Packers fan because of how much I love talking about them. They're back up on the clock here. Jalen Polk would probably be the pick on most teams, but we already have 2 rookie wide receivers, and we kind of want production early. Zay Jones got suspended for the Cardinals. I don't remember exactly what he did, if I'm being completely honest with you. Off the top of my head, maybe it was PEDs. I think he's suspended for 5 or 6 games. Not the most important news because it's like the number 3 receiver on the Cardinals has been suspended. So it's not like it was like fucking backed up when I said that news. People were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Game-changing, league-altering news. But if Michael Wilson's the clear number 2 wide receiver in Arizona, kind of good news. Now, again, is he like they have Dortch as well? But I am kind of high on the Cardinals offense as well compared to most. So I'm going to go with Michael Wilson here. And the best part about Michael Wilson is if he just doesn't show up early on in the season, you can just drop him like it's hot. So we're back up on the clock here. After with Michael Wilson, Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, TJ Hawk Tua-son. That's such a shitty joke, dude. The Hawk Tua thing isn't even that. I never thought it was that funny, but it is fun to say. Rashid Shaheed, Bucky Irving, Roshan Johnson, Pittsburgh Steelers, Dalton Schultz, Justin Tucker, Harrison Butker, J.J. Taylor, A.J. Dillon, Caleb Williams, and Pat Freiermuth. So we're going to go ahead and go with our kicker first, get Brandon Aubrey. People seem to be very high on him. And then we're going to be going with a defense. The way you're going to draft a defense is by drafting a defense up against a not-so-hot opponent in week 1. I made a video on defenses to stream. Make sure you check that out. That video came out yesterday on 8/23. Make sure you watch that. Highlight those defenses. Put it in your brain. Write it down in your phone so that you remember those are the defenses you want to draft. So the Seattle Seahawks is my number 1. They have a great matchup in week number 1. And then in week number 2, they got another great matchup. So you can play them in both weeks, which is solid because then you don't even have to worry about maneuvering the waiver wire in week number 2. We make defense to stream videos every single week. So while some people might not like, Nick, you drafted Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown on the same team, you fucking idiot, you can't do that. Some people will get all hot and bothered by that. I love this team. Brock Purdy, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, T. Higgins, Laporta, McLaurin, Seahawks, Aubrey, McConkey, Moss, Ford, Wicks, Michael Wilson. This team, heavily competitive. Very, very competitive. This is a team that, in my opinion, is at least 5 wide receivers deep, including Ladd. And then if Wicks or Wilson hits, we're looking at a superpower. We have an elite tight end. We have a elite running back. And we have a solid running back too, with depth at the running back position. This is about as good as you can get in terms of drafting a team. In my opinion, we perfectly utilized the hero running back strategy that we're talking about off the rip of the video. So if you guys did end up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below like it owes you some money. Lightly caress the like button, helps me out a ton. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already, and check out the Patreon link in the video description for my PPR rankings and cheat sheet. The half PPR rankings should be out by now when you're watching. If not, they're going to be out very, very shortly. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.